to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments by email. Hit us up at dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here are your co-hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And,
Yes?
the problem with the world is people.
Oh.
The world is a wonderful place, and then there's people. This is a true story. I really thought that at one point in my life that I wanted to be a doctor, and I thought about it because I was really into the puzzles and I liked all this stuff and the anatomy and the biology and all that other stuff. And then I realized I'd have to deal with people.
Disillusionment settled in.
And that's what the subject of tonight's Soul of the Everyman is. Tonight's Soul of the Everyman, we're going to talk about people in the context of people ruin everything. Actually, I mean, that's kind of the sentiment. We love one of our new, or maybe our current favorites of the poets and philosophers that we discuss is Mr. Khalil Gibran. And if you haven't taken the time to look up and read and listen to some of his poetry or some of his books and so on, I would highly recommend it, because it's both it has a fierceness to it, it has a world weariness to it, and it has a soaring, sort of inspiring timbre to it. But in this particular saying that we're going to talk about tonight, I think that he's really hitting a sort of a ground truth. Would you like to do the saying? Read his saying? This is a good one.
You want me to read it, huh?
Yes. Put some oomph into it.
All right.
All right, so let me set this up. Khalil Gibran.
All right. Travel and tell no one. Live a true love story and tell no one. Live happily and tell no one. People ruin beautiful things.
They sure as hell do. Why? And our topic today is really why. Why do people ruin beautiful things, Margaret?
Oh.
It's just they're being people.
Well, people are unconscious.
That's true.
And their responses are usually not thought through. They kind of just get triggered and out it comes. And if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is sort of take each line that Gibran had put forth.
Sounds good to me.
And the first one is travel and tell no one. Now, traveling is a very, can be a very expanding experience, because you can put yourself into situations. And the way you travel is very telling, because it's a journey that you're taking, and it reflects the way you approach your own life's journey. So how do you travel about? And travel also means that you are free to travel. You're not locked down in a space doing your habitual things or your expected things, whatever your routines are. And the mind is an interesting thing, because it wants to be in control, but then when it does the same thing over and over and over again, day after day, it gets bored. So it looks for things to like pick on. It gets cranky.
Yeah, that's true.
So travel and tell no one.
Well, I like the other part of it is tell no one. So when you travel, you're right. You're taking a journey. You're taking yourself out of your familiar and into the unfamiliar. You're taking yourself into a situation where you are not known, and perhaps where you will see things or do things which you haven't done before. So there's a freshness, there's a newness to it. But tell no one. And I was sort of wondering about this myself, and I'll just pose it as a question. Is it that you tell no one because if you say, well, I'm going to this wonderful place next week, or I went to this wonderful place, that it somehow cheapens the experience. It encapsulates it. It makes it into a postcard, or almost like maybe your people will look at you and say, oh, I did that too. And it takes away its uniqueness to you.
Right. You have narrowed your field of experience down to something that you can take a selfie over. And isn't that what people are doing with their lives now? They narrow their experience of life down to the selfie instant.
Right. But I think if you travel, you are opening yourself up to being in an experience. If you tell someone, you have to relate it back to them. You have to turn it into something that somehow they're having this vicarious experience, or you couch it in terms that now this particular person can understand, and it becomes I think it's not, maybe cheapening is the wrong word, but you're taking something which might have been so vast it was indescribable, and saying, oh yes, we went to the ocean and there were fish, and I think in doing that you ruin in telling someone else, you ruin the experience. You ruin it because you, instead of leaving it as something which was of a whole and something new and unique, where you had to be maybe expanded a little bit, you're turning it into something where you can turn it into a paragraph or a few phrases or a couple of snapshots or a selfie, and not have the uniqueness of how it indescribably affected you.
Well, the fullness of the experience.
Right, exactly.
You basically take the experience itself, and in order to begin to explain it, you've got to go mental.
Exactly. You take all the life out of it and put it onto the page, or you take all the life out of it and put it into words. We all know that words, whether they're written or spoken, are such a poor vehicle for conveying experience.
Right.
We in the experience in the task of telling Christopher's story, or in some of the other stories that I've written, in the task of doing that, we know that what we were putting down was only the barest. It was the most. It was the best we could do with the medium, but it was so limited by the medium, and yet, it is something which we know has transmitted some of the experience. But there's nothing that we would say, if you look here, you would have everything. This is it. This is the whole thing. It's in these, 300 pages. No.
Chapter 5. That's it.
Chapter 5 was a brilliant chapter with tons of lovely writing and some adjectives, and you really should start there and then move yourself backwards and forwards. I did like Chapter 5, but I think in that way the people ruin that experience by bringing in the other, the person who is not having. I think if you go on an experience with another, it doesn't ruin it. It may expand it, but if you tell is the key. That's the ruining part, the telling.
Well, you are communicating through your mental heart. And unless you are capable of communicating on other levels to broaden the experience for another, it's a very difficult thing to share unless the other person's heart is with your heart. I mean, if you're communicating on the heart level and you both experience the joy of being able to, like I always describe a baby. When the baby just opens its eyes and looks at you and realizes you're there and the baby's in his body or her body. It's like, I'm here, you're there. And then the giant grin comes out. That kind of heart-to-heart kind of communication. Then the words become sort of Secondary, yes. Decoration almost.
Decoration is a good word, yeah.
Because the experience, being able to share the joy of that moment, is the most important thing. And difficult to encapsulate when the heart is not engaged. You know, if you think about it, when you're trying to speak with someone and they are just not paying any attention to you because their mind has carried them to another place, and all you want to do is just to be with that person for a period of time while you're together. But that person is constantly thinking of, well, this is the next step that I've got to take. And the schedule calls for this, this, and this. Do I have all those ingredients or whatever it may be? It's difficult to break through that spin when someone is in that cycle of thinking, unless you can actually get that person's attention.
Yeah, but I mean, to bring us back to Gibran, what he's really saying is what you said before, is that the experience, the being in travel, is impossible to bring into the telling. So don't do it. Don't cheapen it. And if we go second line here, which I think is even more evocative, is live, and live as being. Live a true love story. You know, and tell no one.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're not with someone. Obviously, if you're having a true love story, you're not just loving yourself. I mean, some people, but you're living, you're being in heart-to-heart relationship with somebody, with another. But tell no one. Don't cheapen the experience by saying, oh, and then we went there, and then we went here, and then I got this diamond ring, and then, I did da-da-da. Bah, forget all that.
Well, I think it's interesting that everybody thinks of a love story, and it's got to be a husband and wife kind of thing.
No, I didn't say. I mean, it's just a love story.
Right. It is an unconditional love, and it's very difficult to begin to explain that without someone having the experience of unconditional love.
Or even, yes, I don't want to say, I say unconditional love, but all the aspects, even having a true relationship with somebody can't be translated into words. It has an undefinable and unexpressible thing, which is the trueness of it. Inexpressible thing, which is the trueness of it, which no matter what, words are wonderful vehicles. They're encapsulated thoughts, but they are lies. No matter what, they're always a distance, a separation between the experience and the word. Why is it so difficult to describe things to people? Why do we have so many words? Because we can't quite get there, and we try and we try. And Gibran is saying, don't try. Don't do it.
It falls short. words fall short because words, as we have said before, mean different things to different people according to their experiences and their environment. So you have to be super clear when you're using words if you're actually talking about the same thing.
Yep, that's true too. There's the context, and then the listener becomes important. And I think no matter what, you can't distill the relationship into something that the listener will ever understand at any true level.
Well, even if you are speaking to another person who has the experience and does do the unconditional love, relationships are unique according to the people that are involved. And even talking to the people involved about the relationship, it is two different perspectives. So it's always a unique experience, but the underlying connection is that unconditional love experience. Because we know when you have the experience.
A true love story.
Well, it's just, it's the typical, we've heard it many, many times. Somebody asks, what is love? What can you tell me what love is? And the standard reply is, if you have to ask, you haven't experienced it.
And it's certainly an innocent enough question, but that reply may sound harsh, but it's the truth. And instead of sounding harsh or trying to give people the truth, oftentimes we'll tell them a story. Really, what it amounts to a fiction. What is love? And then you'll get a bunch of words. And at some point, you have to realize that this is a fiction, or you never grow beyond it. If you live your life in the words of love, you are not ever really in a true love story. You're only in, and I think we've talked about this before, where it has to be this, he has to be so hot, so tall, or she has to be so this, or so. It's all mental concepts, lists, constructs, and it never strikes to the heart of it. And I think, again, this is his thesis that people, the telling of something to another through words, through these types of disassociated expressions, ruins them. It takes something away which is undefinable. Trying to share this experience in the other's eyes can never be the same as having it, and yet they will almost say, I know, we've heard the I knows. The I knows are, oh, I know exactly what you're going through. And if you really did, you wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
You would just, like, all you do is you just be rather than say. The next, and I know we're going through this, but I think it's a good thing to take poetry apart this way. Live happily. All these three things are coming closer and closer. I think if you live happily, there are people in this world, both with all of these, but there are people in this world who won't just take your story; they'll be jealous of your story. They'll literally want to do something to actively try to interfere with your happiness, and it's a step beyond. It's not just, if you say, "I'm happy," to someone, I think oftentimes you get a kind of a, well, who the bleep bleep do you think you are?
Mm-hmm.
So Gibran's saying, live happily. Be whole and in one's self and in one's heart, and hold happiness as a being state. But don't tell anyone because they'll come and try to take it away from you.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? But that is a very childish reaction. And you see it all the time. When one child happily is playing with a toy, the other one's got to come by and rip it from their hands. And they just say, well, it's my turn. And you'll just stop that for a second. You go, are you saying it's your turn to be happy? Or just your turn to have the toy?
There's a, I think there's something really there, because when you see that dynamic play out, where you see one, let's just say a child, but it could be anyone, who literally is in a state of complete contentment and happiness, and you'll see, this almost visceral reaction of in essence expressing the thought, who do you think you are that you're happy?
You mean coming from another one?
Another. Who do you think you are being happy? I'm going to show you that this is something that you can't have, that no one can have.
And that's the interesting thing, because you see that pattern replay over and over again in adults.
Yeah.
One person can be very happy and contented, and another person looks over and is like, hey, why are you happy?
Almost offended.
Yeah. How dare you be happy when I'm not happy?
How dare you? The comedy phrase is, I'm not happy until you're not happy. Which is in essence that my happiness is dependent on your unhappiness, and it becomes a relational thing. It's almost like I can't define my happiness unless I see all others are less happy than me.
Well, that's when it degenerates.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are a couple ways to go with that. When one person's happy and suddenly becomes aware that another person is like watching, they usually just show what they're laughing, if they're amused at something, or they say, oh, look at this, to share. Then that diffuses that, because that's that half second of, wait a minute. Or the other thing I found is that people, if you're laughing about something or enjoying something, and someone gets angry.
Yes. What are you laughing at?
Well, they think they're being laughed at.
Exactly. That's what I mean. What are you laughing? Are you laughing at me?
Right. And it's very you sit there and you're like, what are you talking about? You weren't even on the scope.
And I think that's what really offends them, is somehow your happiness is complete without them.
Without them, yes. I did have that experience one time with in a lab. We were supposed to, some biology thing, and we had to figure out what the problem was with this particular plant. You get a whole series of plants, and everybody had to write down whatever, and they got more and more absurd as you went down the line, and at the end it was like something ridiculous. The plant is not healthy. Why? Because it's pot bound. It was just, we started laughing. It's like, what, are you kidding me? This is this is not nothing chemical. No, we were all laughing at the how absurd it was getting. And I remember one girl had come over to me and she actually shoved me. Like, what's up? And she's looking at me like, what are you laughing at? I was like, look at that. Isn't that ridiculous? And then her face went, what? You're laughing at the plant? Well, yeah, look how silly this is. Why? What's up? And she thought that we were laughing at her.
And isn't that interesting? Because there's two dynamics there. One is, of course, that you're being happy, and I'm not, and why are you happy? But the second one is, it's not about me.
Right.
Which, it's like, but it should be about me.
Right. Well, why isn't it about me?
Why isn't it about me? Or conversely, the person who ruins beautiful things ruins them because somehow they're not involved in the beauty, or they're not included in the beauty. So in order to say, oh, I see someone perfectly content and happy, and I want that too, so I'm going to ruin their thing. It's almost like if they're happy and they're having the happiness and I can't have it. It's the same sort of thing where it's like there's only one pie, and if you have all the pie, I can't be happy. And instead of realizing that everyone has the ability to be happy in any situation, but that they reject that and say, this person's happiness is taking away from my happiness.
Right. Or the feeling that somehow you're making them feel inadequate.
Inadequate, yes.
And that's so you look at that and you're like, I don't understand why you feel inadequate.
Well, and what you said before is like, we weren't even thinking about you, and people will get offended at that. Well, what do you mean you weren't thinking about me? You're being happy without me?
Well, see, the thing is, I didn't say that to her, but I did. I said, we're laughing at this potted plant. It's got a problem. And you're like, okay.
And now you have a problem, and maybe there's a connection here. So this live happily. I think Gibran really is saying here is that if you live happily and you tell people, they won't just be happy for you. They will actively try to take your happiness away and to deny you. It's almost like if someone's eating and enjoying their food, you want to do something so that they're not enjoying it as much as they look like they are. It's a very perverse thing. It's a very perverse type of because if you reversed it, if you said, well, if I was so happy, would I like people to come in and take my toy away or take my happiness away? Say, oh, of course not. But yet you that sentiment rises, and it is a really a perversion of the feeling of happiness that you see in another. It becomes jealousy. We always talk about the seven deadlies, right? Well, jealousy or envy.
No, I think envy is the one.
Yeah, well, envy. Jealousy is different. I agree, but envy is of someone's happiness and wanting to destroy it.
Right.
This is
that's the edge right there. You can be jealous because you want to be happy, but when you take a step into envy and you want to destroy someone's happiness, that's when you've got a problem.
You see this also, the same perversion, I believe, when people knock over things, like knock over something which is beautiful and perfect and they say, well, why should those people have this beautiful thing? I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to teach them that they can't be happy. That's a perversion, and it's truly envy, and it's truly if you talk about toxic. The seven deadlies, it's truly toxic to be that envious. So live happily and tell no one. It's like, keep your own counsel. Be happy, but tell no one, because it will engender envy. The green eyes, truly.
Yeah, the green eyes. The green eyes is something that when you're young, people kind of warn you about green eyes.
It's true, and that happiness. Let's take this. We'll take this sentiment to the break and take a little break and go back to the studio. But I believe that happiness, that enviousness of happiness, is at the crux of the power of this little poem. But anyway, let's go back to the studio, and don't be jealous. We'll be right back.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favourite bad boy thief, Dev, is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir. There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thank you for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network, where we continue to bring you nice things. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
You know that's why we can't have nice things, because people ruin everything. But not you people. You people don't ruin anything. You are our loyal listeners, and we would never think that of you. Ever. Anyway, so but tonight we are talking about one of our favorite, philosopher poets, Khalil Gibran, and he has really encapsulated as good poetry does a true thing. A true thing is that there is this undercurrent or tendency in humans to not just be desirous of happiness, but also to desire that the other not be happy. Remember the German word Schadenfreude, which is not exactly this sentiment, but the essence of it is being happy about someone else's misfortune.
Ah, yes.
And there is this kind of undercurrent of, in essence, judging our own happiness by the fact that someone else is unhappy, and it's sort of an evil thing, but it's there. And I think Gibran is really saying here in this poem that, or in this stanza here, that that which makes you happy, that which you hold within yourself, your happiness, or with a relationship with the other, that you need to guard it. You have to, in essence, be very wary of telling, of letting on, in essence, that you're happy. And isn't that a terrible indictment of humanity as a whole? Is that someone else telling you that in essence, that or displaying contentment is enough to, in some places, incite this sort of insane enviousness? How dare you, in essence, be happy? Isn't that a horrible thing?
Yes, it is. And you think of it as what steps into a person's soul that allows them to do this. And I think it has a lot to do with pain trigger. Or I think Tolle calls it the pain body. It expresses itself when it's triggered. And when you have hit a point where you've decided that, okay, this is my reality, I'll make do with my reality, it's, oh, gee, it's not that bad, it's okay. And then you see somebody who's happy. Everything that you just said,
out the window.
Yeah, because you're sitting there in a reaction of, I'm unhappy, I'm in pain because there is no joy in my life. Why do we give up joy so easily?
Well, and I think that the other part of it, Margaret, if I would say so, is that same sentence, that same situation, is why not me? Here's the situation, I think. You hear of another's happiness. So-and-so won the lottery. So-and-so just got a big book contract. So-and-so, whatever it is.
So-and-so got married.
So-and-so got married. And you say, oh, isn't that wonderful? But there's a part of you, if you're honest, that says, why not me?
When is it my turn?
Why is it what makes them special? I think there's this. I'm probably going to say it wrong, but there's a part in the scripture where it talks about seeing the happiness of the other, and being and saying, why this one has a blessing and not me? What did they do to deserve this? And in fact, the answer is they did nothing to deserve it. Don't look at another's blessings and think that those blessings won't come to you. You just say, I'm open for blessings. You close yourself down when you say, why not me?
If you flip it and get into the habit of flipping it, thinking, well, it happened to them, so it's got to happen to me. Just turn it on its head.
I mean, they're not deserving, so it could happen to me too. I mean, I know they're idiots, so I mean, gosh, anybody can get
that. We should be right on.
Right. I'm as idiotic as they are. This is great. But I mean, that is the way to turn it around. Instead, you say, "I've been so much better than them. I've done everything right. I've got all the right stuff. I've wear the right socks, and why can't I get the thing? And so I'm going to ruin it for them." You turn into Gollum, because just hearing about someone's success, you have that moment, you have that instant of decision. To be happy for them is one thing, but to not look at yourself in comparison and say, why not me? I'm so horrible. Well, you feel judged almost that you didn't get something.
Well, again, why not me? Why not me? Why can't I'm going to be next? Why not me?
But that's the right. I
Mhm.
agree. That's the right way. But instead, you almost say to yourself, "I'm so much more deserving than they are."
Yeah, in your head, your ego
Yes.
sits there and says, "Well, I'm better than they are.
And
I'm more talented. I'm more something something something."
exactly, I'm a better writer. And you look. The instant is God. What's the matter with you? Can't you see how undeserving they are? And how much more deserving. I've done everything you've asked, and this bargaining. It's a bargaining thing. I've done everything you've asked, and I've never said no, and yet this schlub over here gets $1 million out of nowhere. What's with God? What's going on here? And then you say, well, I'm gonna give it all up. I'm never gonna listen to another thing God says because I did everything, and this schlub over here, and that's the, in that way you're ruining your own happiness and potentially trying to ruin their happiness.
You don't have to.
No, we don't. But I said, this is what people, they literally sit there and wallow in, as you said, they instantly go from, it's okay, I'm doing fine, it's all right, to, why not me? And then you're like, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me another thing. I can't stand to see your happiness or to even hear about it.
Oh my goodness gracious! It's
But
ego.
it's so cute.
It's the ego.
Ego.
It's completely ego. You got to get out of it because your ego is just going to fry you alive.
Isn't that the thing? Is that what is coming up, as you said, it's this unconscious ego of the story you instantly are telling yourself in this situation is, I'm so much better and so much more deserving and such a better this and such a much more better that how can these undeserving wretches, these human refuse, have more than me? I'm going to take it away from them because they don't deserve it anyway. I do. So you just go into this. If you follow that, it's an instant unconscious story, and then maybe evil that you will do.
You basically have taken the other person and degraded them into less than, which is a dangerous position. It's all life at that point. You are not valuing life in general. There's no perspective in it. You may be unhappy. Yes, that's true. But why should your unhappiness change your perspective on things? That's my question. Why is it that unhappiness changes people's overall perspective on their life?
I think it's the other side of that coin is that you, in essence, are bargaining. You're saying, the bargain was you do all these things, and rather than being in and of themselves an end, I'm doing this because it needs to be done. I'm doing this because it is where I am in my life right now. And even if it's a hard task or whatever, all that, you say, no, I was doing this to get the cookie. And I did everything. And the cookie was supposed to be mine, and instead I did everything, all the... And it raises it. It's like, was I a fool to do all these things? Was no one paying attention to me? Am I such? Is there something wrong with me? I'm being judged because I'm being punished. Someone else's success. Am I being punished?
So you're basically saying you immediately talk to God to do a bargain.
Exactly. And I think when you said that woman, the girl was saying, are you laughing about me? Because again, it's like, I've done all these things right, and there's these people laughing at me. Well, actually, they're not even, you could have been in another country. They're not even concerned about you. They're having a lovely time without you. And you feel judged. You feel like, but why can't I have the lovely time? I'm going to tell those people about it. I can't. What are you doing?
She shoved me.
Shoved you.
It's like, what?
Physical assault.
Just like, what is the problem? problem.
You see that? You said it with the kids. One's playing with the toy, and the other one will literally come from across the room, walk right up, and kick the toy out of her. You're having too much fun with that. You know? The one finds something unique about it. Oh, look, you can do this. And she's like, oh, yeah. And the other one's like, I never thought of that. I'm going to take that away. How dare you have something fun to do with that I didn't think of? And they go over and kick them.
It's like I said, it's a very childish response.
But it's so human and so familiar that it evokes laughter, but you know there's a sadness to it because you see it in day-to-day society, and sometimes you have to fight against it. You have to say, no, I'm not in this for the bargain. I wasn't like quid pro quo. I put my coin in and I get the cookie. No, I'm here because I'm living a life. I'm a being going through a journey, and my journey is my own,
right?
My experience, and all other journeys, whether they touch mine or not, whether I know about them or I don't, have no relationship to my being in the sense that they are there and there are people. But you have to almost bring yourself to that. You have to not succumb to this very seductive story of I did everything right, Lord, and why can't I have the cookie? Is it something about me? Are you laughing at me?
Right. You sit there and you're like trying to justify, which it's a very interesting thing, as if things come to you because that phrase, oh, you deserve this. And you have to realize that stuff happens whether you deserve it or not. And sometimes no matter what you do, you're not going to get the same result. So why isn't that part of your own particular reality, would be my question. You haven't learned enough about the world to realize that it's not all about you?
Well, and the other part is that you want to put your judgment in place of the universe or God's. You want to say, God's gone crazy. These people are getting things. I know God, you've obviously gone crazy. I've got to step in. I've got to make this right. I've got to take that away from them. Because God's gone nuts. These people are evil. They don't deserve any of this stuff. They've been naughty in my sight.
A lot of judgment.
A lot of judgment.
There's a lot. See, it's basically trying to figure out whether or not your own personal way of being. Maybe check how is it that, what is it that you're using to live your life by when you're traveling on your journey? How are you going about it?
Right.
Because if it's something that you basically feel everybody else has got to live up to because it's my journey.
Ooh, there's a phrase. Everyone else has got to live up.
That's got to be a flag that's got to raise in your head to say, okay, examine this. Examine this.
Yes.
Because there's no grounded center at that point. You are dominated completely by your ego and your mental constructs, your mental how things should be. Here's my list. Your life is not a list.
The phrase "how things should be."
Right. That phrase.
That's a big one. Because I know how things should be.
Right. And it's very interesting because people feel that, well, I know how things should be, and you're like, okay, for your world, your life, that's fine. But they have a tendency to incorporate other people into their world, and their people that have been incorporated have got to behave a certain way.
But isn't that all the story? You see someone playing with something and enjoying it, and that's not how you should play with that thing. I know how things should be. You're doing it wrong, and I'll take it away from you and show you how to do it right. You know, you're
It's again, what is the standard by which you live your life? How do you walk your walk?
hmm.
And I mean, if we take it in another vein, like you're growing up and there's certain expectations that your society has. You know, you're a girl, and you in traditional cultures you should um, go to a certain school, you should behave a certain way, get to a certain age, that's when you're appropriate to be married off, what family you should be going into, how this affects the drama of the culture, because each culture has a drama to them, which is very interesting when you think about it. So how are you actually fitting into this drama of culture or society?
Well, and the mores are kind of an outward expression of a culture's how things should be and how you should be happy. And if you're living outside of them and being happy, that becomes a lightning rod for a culture to attack you.
Yeah. No, this is true. This is basically what has happened. And you could see this with just simple, I don't know, how do I explain this? The idea that a girl would be able to choose their own husband. That
Scandalous.
is a more modern concept. People don't realize how modern it actually is. And if you went against it, you would have all of the society very angry at you. Even to the point of, I believe in India, the caste system, you were never supposed to cross your caste. And
Right.
if you did, you were supposed to be executed for it.
And that story, that cultural moray, the cultural story, becomes who deserves happiness under what conditions. And if you see as a cultural kind of policeman, if you will, a cultural enforcer, that someone who is part of your culture is being happy outside of the bounds, you have basically two things. Either attack them and bring them back in under duress, or you expel them.
Right.
You're no longer one of us because
Right.
you have violated the precepts, whatever they are. And that is a people ruining beautiful things. It's like it's the Romeo and Juliet story.
Right.
You know, here's a relationship which was forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
That forbidden relationship offended both sides equally. You were either a Capulet and you did Capulet things, or you're a Montague and you did Montague things. You never touched each other. And that these two would find happiness was so offensive to both sides that in the end, I think everybody dies. I mean, everybody's dead at the end.
Right.
But the point is just that what was their problem was that they told, that became known. If they had lived happily and kept it an absolute utter secret, first of all, it wouldn't be a play, but second of all, it wouldn't have been ruined by those who learned of it and realized that they can't, that it's an offense against God and nature for you to be happy in this way.
Right.
And the real hard thing would be, happiness is your own journey. My journey is my journey. If I can find happiness here as a Capulet, who am I to say that you shouldn't be happy as whatever you are? But we don't do that. That sounds wonderful and lovely, but if you look at the history of humans in general, that's not what we do. We kick over other people's sandcastles and tell them that's the wrong kind of sandcastle.
Right. And it's here's a thought. Okay. It's actually the demon of the mind that does this.
Yeah, and in essence, it becomes a obsession to enforce the bounds of happiness that you've set upon yourself upon others. So, well, I can only be happy with this. And I see someone else happy without the things that I think are absolutely necessary for happiness, and with things that I think absolutely can't be used for happiness. And I see them happy and I say, I will teach them that they are wrong. I will take away all their happiness. I will grind them into the dust, or I will expel them from my sight.
Well, again, when I say the demon of the mind, it is the thought form that basically it should be this way. It's not this way. It's got to be this way because I say it's got to be this way. And this is the right way, and you're doing the wrong way. Therefore, you're evil and I'm good.
Right. It's all judgment.
It's all judgment at that point. And that's when the demon possesses the soul. Because now it's perfectly all right for you to lessen the value of this other person's life.
Yes.
And humans destroy things they do not value. That's what they always do.
And you dehumanize before you destroy.
Right. And so if you are acquainted with that pattern, because all humans do this in some way, shape, or form, if you can recognize that pattern, that the mind is becoming demonic and is going to possess your soul, that's when you realize that you have to touch into your humanity, the compassion of who you are, and the commonality of being alive. That's when life becomes valuable.
Well, you have to interrupt that as a really a story which has an evil end, because you dehumanize and then you destroy.
That's exactly it. There is only one end to that, and it is evil, or death, or destruction.
Or destruction, and that's what's really being said here in this short, half a paragraph here. People ruin beautiful things because they have judged them to be wrong and not beautiful, ugly, and worthy of destruction.
You know that phrase in the Bible that the demon comes to kill, steal, and destroy?
Yes.
Isn't that what we just described?
Absolutely.
That's when you know you're being possessed by a mental demon.
Yes. And so Gibran would say, tell no one. And I would say, if you feel that way, that stop yourself.
Try to become aware. And we've come to the end of our show.
You're ruining a beautiful thing. But it is the end of the show, and it is a beautiful thing. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.